Hello, Blaise. How are you?
Fabulous. How are you doing today?
I'm doing so good. Welcome to the Balanced, Beautiful, Abundant Show. I'm so excited to have you on the show today.
Thank you so much for having me. It's awesome to connect with like-minded people and just share positive messages. So this is awesome.
I know. I'm super excited. I can't wait to tell my audience about your amazing background. So, Blaise Hunter is the author of a book called Heroine: Embrace Your Flaws and Own Your Awesome. She is the 2020 influence. She won the 2020 Influencer Award at the Canadian Women Inspiration Awards. She is an international speaker and podcast host. She is a fertility expert. Blaise's mission is to inspire women to love themselves and breathe their passion like fire through her Heroine Movement. She is on a quest to help women unleash the power of vulnerability to become their own hero. She's a founder of a nonprofit called Footprints, Infertility and Pregnancy Loss Support Initiative, which helps parents work through grief and trauma. And she is the CEO of Blaze the Trail, a consulting agency geared towards helping people birth their voices, dreams, goals, books, and brands. So I'm so excited to have you on the show, and I'm going to dive right into the first question. So what was your journey to becoming your own heroine?
You know, it's funny how everybody has these moments in time that you're faced with. And sometimes it takes us maybe, difficulties or challenges where we realize that moment is there to help us, not hurt us. And to tune into that frequency and realize these are defining moments in our life. So I had a few of them that led up to me becoming the hero of my own life. And through my whole life, I struggled with loving myself. I was an emotional cutter, and I masked that up with being an overachiever. So on the outside, it looked like I had confidence, but I was trying to show confidence in my doing because I didn't feel confident in my being. And I became a mother, and that was another portal of feeling shame and guilt and never good enough and never achieving all the things you're supposed to do. And I always felt lacking. And I developed an autoimmune disease where my body attacks itself and I struggle to breathe every day. And I just tried every avenue in the medical system that didn't work to help me feel better. It was just always treating the symptom and not actually getting to the root cause of why I'm so ill. So I stumbled across an alternative health practitioner, and I always thought that was a bit woo-woo, and I was kind of a skeptic, but I had tried everything else. So I was willing to try something else. And I walked into her office and she just said, "Oh, you have an autoimmune disease where your body physically attacks itself." I'm like, "Yep." And she's like, "Do you think there's a link with that and the fact that you hate yourself so much and you attack yourself with your thoughts every day?" And I was just like, no one had ever put those two together. And it just kind of was a light bulb for me, an aha moment that I needed to work on loving myself and starve the disease by stop the hate and inject the love. So that was 6 years ago. And that was the first defining moment that really led me to wanting to inject love as I am, who I am, and just be enough just the way I am. And part two of that was that my daughter then was 3 years old, and I was looking at her being like, okay, well, she's going to be going to school soon. How am I going to get her to go to school and not get bullied and picked on and think that she's fat and ugly and never good enough? Because I know I'm thinking that to my own self, right? And I feel like you're raising a little mini me. So how do I get her not to do and be like me? And it was just another light bulb where like, well, mom better practice what she preaches. And if her biggest role model is sitting there in front of a mirror thinking, "You're too fat, you're too ugly, you need to lose 5 pounds, just drink water today, just have a salad, just go work out," like my inner voice is going to become her voice.
Right.
And so that was another defining moment that really challenged me to walk the talk, that I needed to be the hero for me and do it for my daughter and rise up and show her the way to have self-love and be enough just as you are.
So how old is she now?
She is 7 and she is a little fire breather. And that's my greatest achievement, that I changed the course for both me and her to just love ourselves and know we're enough and stand in our power and not be self-loathing and not feel inadequate anymore.
So did you throw away your scale?
Yeah, I haven't weighed myself in years.
That's great.
It doesn't matter. Like, and the book is all about just like changing the perception. Like, I haven't lost any weight, but I changed the image I actually was looking at. I changed the filter.
I love the book, and I mentioned the scale because I love the picture of you and your daughter standing by the scale, and you saying, I don't want her to grow up being a slave to the scale. And I know our books are very similar because my book says, throw away your scale, don't weigh yourself. You know, your goal weight should be sexy as fuck.
Yeah.
And you can feel sexy at any weight and with any body. And it's the internalization of the patriarchy that says we all have to look a certain way. And I'm in LA, and a lot of the women are like, oh, I need to do this and that and follow this, you know, or that exercise plan or diet plan. And it doesn't work, because even if you get down to that weight with the diet, you can't, unless you want to diet the rest of your life. But who wants to diet the rest of their life? I mean, right. I want a life where I feel free, you know, and I'm not controlled by looking at calories every day or weighing myself every day. And when you think about it, those are prisons to keep women feeling small and controlled. And women are stepping into their power and they're feeling their expansiveness. And I think it's great. I really love your book and I love your movement. So I know you mentioned in your bio about women are facing an identity crisis. I wanted to get your opinion. In post-feminism, are women still facing an identity crisis, in your opinion?
I do. I think that we're still confused because we've got this a little bit of a permission statement to step into our power, but we're like, what does that look like? Do I need to be masculine? Do I need to be, you know, overthrow the male domineering? And where do I fit? How do I be a mom? How do I be feminine and masculine? And usually you have to pick one or the other. And I used to think that about myself. I felt like I had a dual personality. I'm very feminine in one walk of my life, but I'm super competitive. I love camping. I love competition and sports and getting dirty. And I felt like there was a disconnect because I wasn't allowed to be both. I had to pick. And you don't. It's like, you know, when you have to step into one and then into another. And that is true identity. And knowing yourself is when I can be strong in that and then pull back and step into another. And I don't think we are taught that at a young age, that it's okay. Whatever you are, whatever interest we are, whatever talent you are, whatever personality you are okay. You are check mark. But I think we're always searching to like fit in and check a box. And so then we get confused of who we are. And then when you become a mom, I think we lose that identity again because we feel like we have to put our whole identity into being a mother versus that is an arm of who I am, not exactly all encompassing who I am, right? So I just really wanted to be that reminder of being like, know who you are. And like, you ask any women, like, what are your passions outside of your work? And women struggle. Like, what is my passion? Yeah. And if you're a mom, you're like, oh, just taking care of the kids. And I'm like, well, that's not your passion. That's part of it. That's not your identity. So we need to then help women, including myself, find who you are at the core and like really unleash that. And so I do think that we do need to encourage that more and more.
I think that everybody has both feminine and masculine. And to me, it's more just like being more of a leader and being more of a follower. Yeah. And if you're with a partner that's competing for the feminine, I like to call it battle for the skirt, you know, competing for the passive or the follower or competing for the masculine, that's a lot of fighting and a lot of competition. So I think it's important when you're in a relationship, whether it's either work or romance, to know kind of what role you're playing. So you're dancing
Yeah.
and you're not fighting, or you're not just waiting for someone to take the lead. And we are in a whole new era because women are stepping into their power. And some of them, like you said, they think it's black or white. Do I have to be all masculine all the time or all passive all the time? But you can be both. And that's a beautiful thing about the new era that we're in, is you don't have to be a one-dimensional type of woman. You can be everything. You can be powerful and you can be feminine. I mean, we have a new I know you're from Canada. We have a new vice president, the first woman ever to be
Yes.
vice president. She has her eyelashes done. She has her nails done. She dresses feminine. So you can be both. You can have the highest ranking office of any women in the history of the world, and you can be feminine. So I just think we're in such a great new era.
Yeah, it's a great portal and opportunity to step into that and really know what our identity is. I think a lot of us have put on these masks and false identity, and it's getting back to true identity. And it doesn't mean being perfect or a certain weight or a certain look. It's like flawed but awesome, right? Like we're all flawed, and that's
awesome. Isn't that what you call it?
Yes, that was like a term, right? And it's like just like the art of Japanese pottery art, kintsugi, where broken pottery is actually an amazing treasure because they infuse the broken part with gold and they highlight the flaw rather than throw away the cup. And that's a beautiful thing to put in our lives. The flaw is part of us. It's part of our story. Don't mask it. Don't throw it away. Don't try and hide from it. It's just part of you, and let it shine and let it be infused with gold.
It's your flaws are part of you and they make you even more beautiful. Yes. Because this Japanese method of highlighting the flaws is way more interesting than just a perfectly smooth bowl or vase, right? It's totally interesting and intricate, and it's an art. So it's like our flaws and our struggles, because we've overcome them and got to the other side, they make us more beautiful, more vulnerable, and more relatable and more interesting. So I love that. So what is your Heroine Movement about? I love that you started a movement. Tell us about it.
So yeah, it was me just always feeling never enough, having that identity crisis, feeling weak, feeling like I had no purpose. And where does your strength come from? And I just felt like, you know what? It's like stepping into your alter ego, because it could be like, this weak, shy, shame and guilt and shoulders down and bad posture girl. And then all of a sudden you leap into your heroine mode, put on your cape, draw your sword, rise out of the ashes and breathe fire. And that's kind of where the whole persona came from, is like, we don't have to look to fictional characters to be our hero. We don't have to look to people from 400 years ago, because yes, we can draw from their wisdom, but I am my own hero. You are your own hero. You can be your children's superhero, or whoever is in your sphere, be that inspiration. And so I'm like, let's create a movement where women aren't pitted against one another, where they're not feeling less worthy, that we can hold arm in arm and say, I got you. Let's go forward as a heroine generation and build that as a legacy, and build that for women to follow and step into their power. So that's what this is all about. Not being perfect, not having all the right answers, or having all the babies. Like, it's about just owning it and putting on that cape and being your own superhero.
I really love what you said about women linking up, because that's part of the new paradigm. Because the way that women were kept down was that we were taught to compete, and that the woman who was the prettiest and the youngest and the skinniest was the winner. So women were taught to compete and to hate each other. And now, as women are stepping into their power and learning how to love and accept themselves, they're also learning how to uplift and empower each other, which really creates a movement. And it's just so beautiful. It's so much easier to go through life empowering and uplifting other women rather than competing with them.
And I was that woman. Like, I'll be totally honest. I definitely pushed others down to raise myself up. And that's only because I didn't feel enough. So I thought, if I could push them down a peg or two, like I would be elevated. But it segregated me. It made me hated, and I didn't feel good about myself, and it didn't really elevate me, because the combining, the unity of women, that force is unstoppable. And if we can just shift our thinking that it's not me about being the best woman, it's about being a collective, and driving and changing that needle, like lifting that needle just a little bit, is way more powerful doing it together than me doing it. And so I had to change that. And I still check myself. That's an old toxic behavior that's ingrained into you. It doesn't just flip off. Like, I'm not like, oh, I'm the guru of that. I challenge myself daily. Like, I see a post and I'm like, how did she get that job? And I'm like, ooh, check, right? No, uplift, not my journey, not my spot. That's her space. Congrats, like, share, send good energy. But that's always a check system I got to go through to like stop that negative pattern. And I just encourage others to always have that inner dialogue, like check it.
I feel it too. You know, I feel judgment coming. Like if I'm looking at somebody's post that may be doing better, and I'm working on switching it from judging to be inspired. Like,
yes,
wow, if she can have that job, if she can have that vacation, if she can have, you know, that level of health, then I can have it too. And that to me really helps switch me out of it, is thinking like, instead of competition, like inspiration, like we're all the same in God's eyes. If she can do it, I can do it, and be inspired by it.
I love that. And you get so much further with that attitude than trying to crush everybody. And I know I'm competitive, and the competitive part is my greatest strength and my greatest flaw, because it's so close on a fine line and I can step in, but I learned to channel it differently. That I'm driven with me and I'm competitive internally with me, but not with others. And it's been the greatest gift I could give myself, because I, gave love, and I inject love versus, pushing people down and thinking that I need to be the one and only conqueror, right?
I love that. And I want to talk about, didn't you write a story about that in your book, about how to empower other women versus like having all the girls in your class hate you?
Yeah, it's just, like it's all about changing that narrative, and whatever we've been taught through our entire life and history. It's like we can just change the narrative by owning our own power. And I always check that, like when I'm critical of somebody, it's not meaning they're doing something that's irritating. It's the fact that I'm probably irritated with my own self. So that's a big clue. Like if you're critical of others, it means you're really critical of yourself. So I don't need to be critical of that person. I actually just need to inject more love for me and be like, I am enough. I'm on my own journey, and like go through all the positives and kind of step back, right? Because I don't want my daughter to grow up in a culture where women are hating on one another. Like women are nasty. It's not the boys. It's even in grade 2. Sorry. Even in grade 2, the girls are picking on girls. And it's like, that's sad. And that's like my mission, is to be like, no. So I want my daughter to know she's enough, so she can be the example and show love and, collaboration and connection, and inspiring these little girls to connect together rather than compete, right?
You know, what's funny is I'm now in a new business partnership with a woman in my 20s. We were kind of romantic rivals. Like we were like going after the same guys, and we were rivals. And I've been watching her on social media and watching her build like this empire. And I was like, teach me what you're doing, and she absolutely graciously said, I will absolutely teach you. And it shows how much the two of us have evolved as individuals. And it's so cool. Like there's so much freedom on the other side of competition.
It is. And it's about, collaboration, not competition, because it's a very lonely space once you start pushing people down, and you need people. You need support. So once you might not need it today, but there will be a day. And when you start knocking people down, they won't be there for you when you actually need it. So like, it's about the collective. It's about collaborating, and like the strength in numbers. And the more you partner with people rather than push them, your reach expands. And that's just the point of life in the human spirit, is to connect, right?
I love that. Write that down, guys. It's about collaboration, not competition. I love that quote. So, how can vulnerability help women become their own hero?
I think we are taught in society vulnerability is weakness. And I thought that. I thought I can't show the soft girl that's, hurting inside, and I can't be real and I can't admit. So I'm just going to project masculine conqueror confidence. But inside I'm dying, right? Like inside I'm shriveled up, this beaten up girl. And I did it for so many years and I didn't get anywhere. It's like a hamster wheel. You're just spinning but not going anywhere, right? And the moment I actually just decided to take off one of those masks and say, hey, I actually don't love myself. The quirky girl that's the life of the party, that dance on speakers, that makes everybody laugh is actually really sad. And it was just like, when people saw that, they melted and met me with their own vulnerability, and it was powerful and healing. And it just all of a sudden another light bulb moment. Hey, maybe I don't need to mask it up all the time. Maybe I can show a little bit of that and heal and connect, right? Because we don't connect with all the masks. And women are taught, as long as we perfect the mask, we're doing well. So that's what I did. I perfected the look, I perfected the attitude, but I never worked on my heart or my soul because I was working double time on the outer. Mm-hmm. And that didn't actually strengthen me as a person. And I crumbled every challenge and setback that I had because I didn't know how to handle it, because I never worked on that muscle. I always say we work on the physical and we always want to be in shape, but that's only 1/3 of the human, whole body is mind, body, soul. But we only work on the 1/3. We only work on the body. Well, what about your mental muscles and your soul muscles? So I really focused the last 6 years on mental and soul muscles, and vulnerability is part of that. And it has connected this beautiful thread of women together, and it's safe. Vulnerability is safe. You're not in danger. You won't be hurt. If you can feel safe in an environment that encourages vulnerability, then that becomes your superpower. It has unlocked all these shackles that I was imprisoned for so long. And same with other women. It has been the key to the entire healing process, is being vulnerable.
So beautiful. And it's so much easier. The other way is exhausting, to always put on this mask or this front that everything's okay. It's so much easier just to be authentic and speak your truth and tell people, hey, I need help, I need support, I'm confused. Like, being vulnerable is just so much easier on your system.
It is. And it's like, it really is a superpower. It is not a weakness. The vulnerability factor has been the thing that has launched my life into amazingness. And I know it seems ass backwards to what we're taught in our culture, but lean into that. Test yourself. Try one thing. You don't have to do the whole thing. You just do one little tidbit that and to know what is vulnerable. If you feel that you can't talk about it, if you feel you get a heart palpitation, if you feel a flutter or heated or just some kind of internal trigger, that is something that is vulnerable for you, and challenge yourself to put it in a safe space. So not everybody, not a stranger, who's safe to you, and challenge yourself to speak about it. And usually what you're not able to speak about is something you do need to talk about. And I just watched an incredible movie on Amazon Prime about Mr. Rogers, highly recommend.
I love that movie. Oh my God, I know.
Right? And at the end, he was talking about death, and he's like, if you can't talk about death, then that's the problem, because if you can start to mention it, you can manage it. Right. And that just blew my mind. That was so an amazing put together quote, is if you can be vulnerable and start mentioning it, you can manage it, right?
I love that. And in 12 steps, they say we're only as sick as our secrets. So
yeah, exactly.
Beautiful. So in your bio, you describe yourself as a mother of purpose and breaker of chains. What do those phrases mean to you?
So I do have a 7-year-old daughter. We had no issue getting pregnant, but after having her and trying to have another one, I experienced 3 miscarriages. And that was something that I masked over and never dealt with and wasn't vulnerable with. And I just sunk into a deeper spiral of depression and lack of purpose. I felt like my babies rejected me. I felt like I had no purpose. I felt like I had no business being a mom. And it just was this vicious cycle. And I still don't have my second baby, but I've learned how to become fertile in my life. I am not barren. Women, we're not barren if you struggle to have a baby. Whether you have no children or you have one and are looking for more, you can still be fertile even amongst your barren season. So I birthed my book. I birthed a business. I birthed this nonprofit group. I birthed purpose and destiny. I encourage myself to pick up those miscarried dreams. I want you to pick up all those miscarried dreams and passions that you've dropped along your journey because of setbacks and challenges. Pick them up and run with purpose. So I'm the mother of purpose now. I am not barren. And that is incredible, amazing, resolute spirit to have. And once you harness that, you are unstoppable. So that's what I tell myself every day. Blaise, you are a mother of purpose. And the second part of that is a breaker of chains. I was imprisoned to all of those labels, all of those harsh things women had spoken about me, people have put on me, my own self-doubts. And I'm like, no, I'm going to be the hero, draw my sword, break those chains and run forward and breathe some serious fire. So I hope that encourages someone today, because I encourage myself with those labels. I've replaced the toxic ones with fabulous, empowering ones.
I love it. And I love your passion when you talk about that. I mean, there's a lot of passion that comes out of breaking free, right? When you felt so imprisoned by the labels, by the societal beliefs and values, by a number on a scale, and you break free. It's like there's added passion than if you were never imprisoned in the first place.
Exactly. And it fuels me. Like, and this is me, I'm super passionate every day, all day. It's not just when I speak on a Zoom call or on a stage, but people often say, like, you must be exhausted. And I'm like, no, like, it actually fuels me because it's coming from such a deep place. And I battle a very serious illness. So when I speak about this, it's so I don't die. And that is coming from such a passionate place. And I don't want to just talk about physical death, because an amazing quote by Benjamin Franklin was, most people die at 25 and don't get buried until 75.
Ooh, I haven't heard that. I love that.
And that's talking about emotional, spiritual death. You're going through the emotions in your body and your everyday life, and you're living it, but you're not truly living it from here. So just like, you know, dieting and a scale, stop dieting in your life. Stop starving yourself from feeling passion and love, and get off the point plan and get hungry for life again. Have an appetite. Because if you're dieting with your food, you are dieting in your experience of life. And you need to take in life and not die. I don't want to be a walking corpse until I die physically on this earth. I want to live with passion, zeal, and I want to have a legacy to give the people around me and leave my mark on this world. So that's about living with intention.
I love it. That is so beautiful. So how do you advise women? How can they be attached from the constant barrage of sexual imagery thrown at them by both social media and the regular media, the advertisements, the magazines? Women, especially this generation, your daughter's generation, there's a lot of sexuality thrown at them. I feel like it's kind of a contrast, even though there's a women's movement and women are stepping into their power, the imagery has gotten more and more sexual. So how can women overcome this sexualization that's constantly being thrown at them?
Well, I think like it's not being wavered. And I guess that goes back to having the identity. So you actually have to establish your identity first, because once you do that, yes, you see it everywhere, but that no longer infiltrates me anymore, because I know my identity. I don't get wavered by what some magazine says is pretty. That's not pretty to my standard. Why is that the measure? I'm changing the standard of what the measure of beauty is. It's not how my skin looks and genetics. It's how I live. It's how I make people feel. It's how I get through problems. It's how I actually take in life. And invoking that conversation in my circle with my husband, with my daughter. I protect her from certain things at 7 years old where she doesn't see that yet. And I control what she knows is beauty, because that's the real measure of beauty, is how you feel about yourself. And making sure she has a good identity is by her parents knowing she has a good, they have a good identity. So I think it's about learning to build a bomb shelter around your own mind. Being like, I decide, I'm the driver of my own life. I control the narrative. You don't tell me what is beautiful. You don't tell me what the standard is. I do. And once you own that, I can watch anything and I know that's bullshit. I know that's not the standard. I'm the standard.
Right.
And that's your superpower. So that's what I tell women. You've got to be able to shift, build that bomb shelter. And you're not bad if that thought comes in and you feel like, oh, I should probably put on that and I should lose weight and, oh, I should hit the gym. Like, you're not bad if you get that thought. It's what you do with it. So I get that thought, like, maybe I've gained some weight during COVID. Okay, yeah, I will try and walk more, but I'm still beautiful.
Call the COVID-15.
Right? Like, but I control what I do with that thought. It doesn't mean I'm fat and ugly and you're just a fat pig and you're not beautiful anymore. It just means like, okay, I'm going to work on still being healthy as best I can in this moment with the circumstances. But me being 15 pounds lighter doesn't change my beauty. And so I always tell people, like, if you're not good enough without the mask, you'll never be good enough with it. So it's okay to have your hair dyed and it's okay to do all these things, but it's your why. If you don't feel good enough without it, then there's that issue. Then you've got to work on your true identity. But you can add it to complement the beauty you already know, but it's your why. If you don't feel good enough without it, you've got some work to do.
I also want you to speak into, because eventually your daughter's going to be having her own social media and seeing, you know, all the women with millions of followers who are wearing like bikinis or next to nothing. So how are you going to explain to her that certain women trade on their sexuality to get attention, to get followers, to get, you know, money, because people are paying them to promote their products? Like, how do you explain that to a young girl, and how do you still have an empowered view about how women, certain women, are still trading on their sexuality?
Well, I think it's just changing the conversation. I don't think that even needs to be a conversation. Yeah, it's out there. There's never a perfect system. Everybody, you know, every profession, every organization, every culture has a flaw. So you identify, like, that's not what we believe. That's there, but that doesn't define the woman. That doesn't make a woman beautiful. That doesn't make them more sexy. What's sexy is your mind. What's sexy is your love for people. You know, your sexy is your attitude. So as long as I invoke that in the culture in my home with her, no matter what she sees, she'll have this strong, resolute feeling inside that she is sexy without that. Yes. Like, she will actually think that's weird.
Yeah, I love it.
And so that's my goal. And that's like why I do this with such conviction, is because it is damn important to make sure that she knows that. We are in a dangerous culture with the next generation coming up. It is so vital for parents to toe the line and hold the line on what that actually means, what sexy means, what beautiful means, what woman empowerment means, and celebrate it and really push it forward and elevate that message.
And not to make her wrong, you know, because the women that are doing that, I would be judgmental. Oh, that's so sad. They don't have the mind or the personality, so they have to like trade on their body. But it's like, no, that's one form of femininity, and that's okay. Like, everybody gets to promote themselves and to showcase themselves how they want to be showcased, and not to even judge the women that are doing that and making them wrong.
And it is easy to judge on that. I think a lot of personal growth coaches probably are challenged with that, because like I face that. I get judgy, absolutely. But then I got to check myself again and being like, that's not my journey. That's not my place to judge. And so if I can teach myself and teach my daughter just to say, you know, she's on her own journey and I celebrate that and it doesn't affect me, then all the power to you. I love what you are as you are. Right. So it's not about judging or making women fit in my own box. It's just saying, hey, you do you, I do me, and collectively we're strong.
I think that's a big, big point, is just everybody is on their own spiritual and emotional journey, and we get to love and celebrate them for exactly where they are.
Absolutely.
Instead of making people fit into our paradigm of what it means to be a woman in 2020.
Absolutely.
So how can women, this is my last question, how can women learn to love and accept their bodies without feeling like they have to diet or without feeling like they have to lose weight? I know we're talking about it, but still women are going to walk away from this podcast and they're going to still beat themselves up. And they're still like, do you have any like tips, tools, and strategies that women can start implementing like this week so they don't constantly beat themselves up about their body image and their weight and their food?
Yeah, a couple of things is that, like, you know, you are enough. And you have to have that kind of internal decision process within yourself that you want to make a change. Because until you recognize that you do cut yourself emotionally with your thoughts, we're continually adding to the problem. So you have to admit, hey, sometimes I say bad things about myself and I'm not the kindest. And I say emotional cutting, but to put a visual to it, imagine yourself as a little girl, 5 years old. Would you dare tell a 5-year-old sweet, precious little girl that she's fat and ugly and not good enough and should have done better and needs to lose 5 pounds and needs to punish herself? Would you tell her that? Of course not.
Yeah.
But like, can you envision? And I do this with my talks. I actually have a board with a little girl and I say, now write down some of the things you say about yourself. And I've done this in high schools, grade 10 girls. I've done this with women, with mothers, and they write down the worst things they've ever said about themselves. And I physically get them to post it on the bulletin board with this little girl because it's so visual. Like, you would never dare do that.
Right.
So the next time you catch yourself, and it's catch it, if you can even just catch it once in the day and build upon that. It's when that thought comes in, when you try on a pair of pants that's too tight and your muffin top goes over and you're like, oh, I'm so fat today. Be like, no, you are beautiful as you are. And the first step to that is replacing, like on a Word document, you search and replace, you find the toxic comments and replace with something positive. So I challenge every woman to put on a Post-it note on the mirror, every mirror in your house. And 3 things that are positive. I am beautiful, I am enough, and I am loved. And you write that down, and that's exactly what I did. I did not change my weight. I did not diet. I put a Post-it note on the mirror, and every time I felt unworthy and fat and ugly, I said those 3 things. And I said it over and over and over for years. And it takes time. I'm not telling you I have a quick fix in 30 days, you're going to love yourself. That's not it. It's physical, emotional, mental work. But it pays off. And I fully love myself, and I didn't change anything. I changed the perception of me. We take pictures all the time with our phones, and we enhance, we add the lighting, we add the filter, and we play around, and we do it every day, all day. But why don't we add the filter to these lenses and just swap it out and be like, oh, you know what? I don't like the lighting with that. I'm going to change the lighting and say I'm beautiful. And ta-da, I'm beautiful.
Because we create our own narratives through our perception.
Yes.
So why not perceive ourselves as beautiful? And for everyone listening to this, you are beautiful exactly as you are on your journey. This has been so inspiring, Blaise. I love your passion. I love the work that you do. It's so, so, so important that women start loving and accepting themselves and empowering each other. It's just amazing. So how can people stay in touch with you?
Yeah, you can visit my website, blaisehunter.com, BLAISE hunter.com. Everything about my heroine movement, all my consulting work, it's all there of how to inspire people to step into their heroine mode, draw their swords, and breathe fire, and just, walk in their power and their purpose, and pick up all those disappointments and run with passion and purpose and fire today, because that is powerful. That is beautiful. And that is the standard that I want to set the bar for my daughter to achieve, is that you don't have to do anything but be you. And that is enough. And that is lovable. And that is perfection. And I just want every woman to know that you don't have to do anything. You don't have to go out and buy a book and do anything today. All you do is flip that switch and say, I am enough. And I have power and purpose, and I'm going to walk in that today. So visit my website. I've got lots of information there. Join my heroine movement. I have an Embracing Heroine Facebook group you can join. And it's just a collective women from all over the world to support one another. So yeah.
That is beautiful. And I have an affirmation that I want to share with the listeners that really helps me. And it's, I am enough. I have enough. I am willing to set myself free.
Yes.
And that speaks into everything that we talked about today. Thank you so much, Blaise, for being on the Balanced, Beautiful, Abundant show. If you love this message, like I'm sure you do, please tag a couple of friends in this Facebook Live that need to hear this message. I think all women can benefit by feeling like they're enough and beautiful as they are. If you're listening to the podcast, please share it with someone. We don't have sponsors. We are private. We are just a community of people who share and uplift each other through sharing this wonderful message. So go ahead and share this podcast with a friend, write a review, give it 5 stars. We so appreciate everything that you do, listeners, for making this podcast what it is and more. Thanks again, everyone, for listening to Balanced, Beautiful, Abundant. Have a wonderful week, and we'll see you next week with another incredible expert. Love you all. Bye.
Bye.